The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod. We're webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters in Tarzana, California. Welcome. I hope that you're all having a wonderful Hanukkah, those of you who celebrate Hanukkah, and that you had a great Thanksgiving, those of you here in the United States. We are thrilled to be back. I have missed you guys. I can't tell you how much I miss it when we're not here. And so much to talk about today to catch up. But I want to start out by telling all of you that we are continuing to have our holiday giveaway. And so every day that you participate with us here, we're going to have something that we're going to give away in the first hour. And we'll tell you what that is. And then we will, at some point during this hour, there will be a word or phrase that will flash on the bottom of the screen. When you see that, you want to make note of it and write it down. Sometimes there's more than one toy that we're giving away in a given hour. And when you see that thing flash, you're going to want to write it down and the name of the toy that you want to give. There might be only one toy or a gift item during that hour, or there might be several. It's getting crazy around here. And you want to email us. Emily's going to show you the address that you want to email to. And email us, tell us in the subject title the name of the toy that you, or the gift that you are hoping to win. And then in the body of the email, you will tell us what the phrase or the word was that was on the screen. Make sure that you send it to the email that's on the screen right now. That is the only appropriate way to enter the contest. One winner will be chosen from all of the correct responses. And if you win, you will get an email letting you know that you won and asking you for your mailing address so that we can get that off in the mail to us, mail to you. You need to give that to us, otherwise we don't know where to send it to. That kind of makes sense, right? Some of the gifts, if they are gifts for things like IBT or gift certificates, it's an email that will come that will put you in contact with the person who is going to work that out for you. So participate in the holiday giveaway because it's a fabulous thing. Now, I also want to remind you while we're here that this entire show is meant to be interactive. We appreciate all of your comments, your suggestions, your questions, and there are lots of different ways to get in touch with us. So as Emily is showing you, you can get a hold of us at www.autism-live.com. There are many other ways to get a hold of us, but if you go to autism-live.com, you will see, it looks like a desktop, and there's a computer screen there. Click on any kind of arrow that's on the computer screen, and you can be watching either the live show or the most recently recorded live show. You can scroll through and find other recent episodes if you want to watch. And there's also a white box there that you can interact with us almost in real time. It has about a 2-minute lag, I've discovered. So write into us. You can ask experts that we have on the show questions. You can have conversation with us pretty much in real time. When you're on live with us, it really grooves because then we can talk back and forth. We like that a lot. So we hope that you'll participate. It is free. You don't have to log in. We don't ask for your personal information. In fact, we don't even know who you are or where you are unless you tell us. Sometimes you will give information away that I don't share with everyone that lets me know if we've had conversations with you before, or if you've never had a conversation with us before, you can make sure that you put something in there that, like, a way to get a hold of you. I'm so articulate today. Can you tell we've had a break? It's Tuesday. In any case, I should have my lips working by Tuesday, right? But if you want us to get in touch with you, put some kind of information in your text that you send. I won't share it with the audience at home. We like to preserve your anonymity. We think that that's a really important thing, to be able to ask what you need to ask without people knowing who's asking, right? I appreciate that. Which brings me to my next point, which is that I am not an expert in autism. I am a mom, and my son was diagnosed with autism at the age of 2.5. I am so learning on this journey. I'm walking the path with you every day and learning, and he's now 10. And so much has changed, and my view on so many things has changed along this path, and you guys are helping me and teaching me, and I hope that we can return the favor. I always like to say I'm the luckiest person that ever lived, because I had access to great help and support just by virtue of the fact that other parents said to me, hey, this is what you need to know. I got hooked up with the right information by pure luck. It was certainly not by design or intelligence or financial well-being, because I didn't have any of those things working for me when my child was diagnosed. I was overwrought, underslept, and completely penniless. But I got access to good things because I got good information, and I know how important it is for all of us to get that good information. I want to be a part of that for you and help connect you with the information that you need. I know that autism is not a one-size-fits-all, that what worked for me isn't necessarily what's going to work for you, and what worked for my child isn't necessarily what's going to work for your child. I know that there's a big, beautiful spectrum, and we all have a place on it. And whether you're a parent, teacher, practitioner helping a child on the spectrum, or you yourself are on the spectrum, I want you to feel welcome, that this is home away from home here for all of us, to be welcomed with no judgments, to be able to be hooked up with information and help and support. Because I'll tell you, the help is huge, right? And figuring out ways to do the financing, the ways to put food on the table, the ways to get through all of that, really, really essential. And get access to services, right? Because that's what it all leads to, getting access to services. But having hope and having somebody sit here and say to you, some of our experts to say to you, you're going to get through this, and we're going to stay with you while you do. I have to say, that gets me through some tough days, So that's what we want to be and provide for you. We hope that we can, and that you'll tell us how we can be of more service to you. And we also hope that you'll share the information about this location, Autism Live, to people in your life that you feel could also use that hope, that information, those resources, and the ability to ask some questions. And nobody's running a tab here. Ask the questions and you won't get a bill. How much do I love that? Okay, so having said all of that, we're going to get started today. We like to do something first thing in the morning called Jargon of the Day. It's our morning warm-up. We take on one word, one phrase, one acronym, and we try to make sense of this in our everyday life. So today we have one of those alphabet land acronyms that can really trip you up if you don't know what it means, or really help you out if you do know what it means. So our term today is FBA. I can't even tell you how many years it took for me to be able to say FBA and know what it stands for. So if you're new to the world of autism, or been around for a while and this still eludes you, don't worry. They used to make fun of me because I would say, that FBI thing. It's not an FBI, but it's kind of like that. It's an investigation, right? FBA. So let's take a look at our actual definition here. FBA stands for Functional Behavior Assessment. Whenever we're working with people who have anything to do with education or to do with psychology, we're going to get that word assessment so often that it's going to feel like it's the only word in their vocabulary, right? It kind of drives me a little crazy, but it's useful sometimes, right? So FBA, we don't even have to say the assessment. We can just ask for an FBA. So what is this thing? Our actual definition of it is, it's a multi-step problem-solving assessment. Don't you hate it when the word that's in the phrase is in the definition? It's an assessment process designed to determine the function of a behavior. Okay, it's called a functional behavior assessment, and our definition has, it's an assessment to figure out the function of a behavior. I'm so happy, we straighten that out. This is why we do something called the working definition. Okay, the working definition, it's an essential process that helps us understand why a challenging behavior is happening so that we can change it effectively. Okay. So anything that you could write in and say, why do I do this? Or why does my child do this? Or why is this happening, right? Any kind of behavior that is messing us up and preventing us from getting to the good things in life, right? I consider that challenging behavior. Not everybody's going to agree, right? Whether it's challenging, but if it's messing you up and preventing you from being safe and happy, let's call it a challenging behavior. And we want to figure out why this behavior is happening, because until we figure out why it's happening, we're not going to be very effective at changing it. Every behavior has a function. Every behavior. You know what? When this was first said to me, I railed against this. I was like, really? Because there's just some stuff that I do that's random. Although, I've spent some years now questioning this, and I can't come up with a single example of anything that I can participate in or watch that this is true of. The more I look at it, the more this is true to me. Everything that we do and do repeatedly, we do because there's some sort of paycheck in it. And I always like to refer to our good friend, Dr. Phil, Dr. Phil's entire show, everyone, is about ABA and doing an FBA, a functional behavior assessment. He has an addict on the show who's tearing his family apart, and he has the family up there, and he says to the mom, what's his paycheck for doing that? What's he doing? Oh, he's stealing money from your purse to go buy drugs? What's the paycheck for stealing money from your purse? And the mom says, there's no paycheck for that. And then they get to the bottom of it, and they discover that when he steals the money from the purse, he gets what he wants, whether it's the attention, because it isn't always just the drugs, or the drugs. He gets something for it. And Dr. Phil says, so we need to change something here. Now that we know, that this is what happens when he behaves in this way, that he gets what he wants, we have to change things here. This is the exact same thing that we do with autism. We find the challenging behavior and we do an FBA. It's a very precise process that is gone through where they take information in and they observe the behavior to figure out what the function of the behavior is. And another example that I always like to use is, let's say that your car starts making a funny noise or it breaks. You don't just automatically decide, okay, I'm going to rip out the water pump. Because I think, in all of my estimation, having not gone to school to be a car mechanic, I'm pretty sure my gut says that it's a water pump. You might be right? But you would never go off that. You would take it to the garage and say, here's what's happening. When I turn the car on, it does this, and this is what happens. The mechanic is going to ask you a bunch of questions to assess what's going on. Then he's going to do it himself. He's going to turn the car on. He's going to observe it, right? And then he's going to come up with, I think what the problem is this, and here's my solution to it, right? Well, we do the same things with behavior, but instead of taking a behavior to the mechanic, we take it to a board-certified behavior analyst who's trained to do an FBA. They're going to look under the hood. They're going to ask you a bunch of questions. When's it happening? Does it happen when does it happen when it's cold? Does it happen when it's hot? And literally, they're going to ask those kinds of questions of when does this behavior occur? When have you seen it happen? What's happened right before? What happens afterwards? So on and so forth. They're going to come up with what the function of the behavior is. We talk a lot about the 4 usual suspects. We'll talk more about that. The 4 things it most often is and how we can combat those 4 things. But it's really important that we don't assume, just like with our car. If you try to assume what the function of the behavior is, you're taking a big risk that you're going to be wrong, and you're going to put into place an intervention that could make things worse and put people at risk. So this is why we don't guess. We want to be Sherlock Holmes and gather information, but we want to make sure that especially when it's a big challenging behavior, we don't want to take this on by ourselves. So functional behavior assessment. When your kid comes home from school and they're getting notes from school saying, Miguel is engaging in this behavior and it's a problem. If you get more than one of those notes saying that something's going on at school, it's time to go to school and ask them, let's do an FBA on what's happening. Because that's going to prevent your child from being moved to a different setting, and it will start a process where your child has the potential to get the intervention that will work in fixing that behavior and getting them back into education. Great thing to know, to ask the school for an FBA. You can also do FBAs at home too. For all of you who have children who are engaged in self-injurious behavior, if you haven't already had an FBA on that behavior, it's time. It's time. Give yourself the gift of a consultation with a BCBA to figure out what the function of the behavior is and have a behavior intervention plan based on that function to change that behavior. It works. It works. This is life-changing stuff. Okay, we always have a question of the day. Our question today, we're talking a lot about challenging behavior this week, and one of the different things that people sometimes do is give their kids a countdown. So we want to know from you guys, do countdowns work for your individual child? They don't work for everybody, but we want to know, we want to kind of get a feel for, is this an intervention that helps your child transition? The kind of thing we're talking about is that when you're going to move from one activity to another, giving them a countdown of saying, okay, checking your watch and going, all right, we're going to be leaving the playground in 5 minutes, right? And asking the child to acknowledge and say, okay, mom, or okay, dad, or okay, grandma, whatever it is. And then, 4 minutes later saying, okay, we're going to be leaving in 4 minutes. Okay, mom, we're going to be leaving in 3 minutes. Okay, we're going to be leaving in 2 minutes. You've got 1 minute to start to get your stuff together. Does that help to reduce tantrums? And we want to know from you guys. So check it out on Facebook. We're going to hear from you guys and take a look at that a little bit later on. I know for my child, this was life-changing for transitions, that it really made a difference. And there are still times we've gotten very creative. Because it worked so effectively with my son, we've gotten very creative over the years with how we use countdowns. That we do count ups as well. If he's having a really funky morning, I'll do a contest with him to say, how quick can you get dressed? And if you can get dressed, and we'll do bidding wars at our house, I'll say, if you can get dressed in under 25 seconds, and he can do it, then you can have blackberries with your breakfast, and that's a big treat at our house. We'll do a thing where I'll say, I'm going to bid that it's going to take you 32 seconds to get dressed. And my husband will say, well, I think it's going to take 42 seconds. And my son will say, well, I think it's going to take 35. Now, obviously, he's going to slow down or speed up and be in control of it. I don't care about that. I want him to win. Right? So if he gets into a thing, well, I think it's going to take me 112 seconds, then I change the game and say, whoever comes up with the lowest score, you get the idea. We get him to do what we need him to do. Okay. We always have a topic of the week. Are you ready for our topic of the week this week? And we talked about this a little bit a couple of weeks ago, but I wanted to delve into it because it's the holidays, and understanding this in the holidays is part of the key to surviving. Antecedent modifications, changing things before the challenging behavior, getting there beforehand and changing something. So if we see that we're having tantrums that are happening every day at 11:15, we're going to look at that and go, what's happening at 11:10 and what's happening at 11? And we're going to change environmental factors. We're going to set our circumstances up so that we're most likely to not have, and we're going to change things up a little bit. If we discover that it's only happening at that time of the day and that lunch recently got moved to 12:30 and it used to be at 11:30, we're going to consider looking at, maybe we need to have a snack. But finding different things, or maybe it's happening because we're transitioning from a preferred activity to an unpreferred activity. And maybe the countdown will help. So we start the countdown and offer a reward for transitioning successfully. So we're going to make it more worthwhile by changing things that happened before the challenging behavior would happen. That's what antecedent modifications are. So we're going to be talking about that all week long, taking on strategies that will help us to be more successful. I love this because it's all about intervening before the behavior. Because I don't know about you, once the behavior happens now, I'm exhausted, I'm less likely to be able to do what I need to do. So if I can get there beforehand, happy, happy, happy. So that's what we're talking about today and all this week. And we've got an exciting lineup. I love Tuesdays because we have two very special guests that join us on Tuesday. Just a few minutes, we're going to be joined by Alex Plank from wrongplanet.net. And Alex is a joy and a treat to have on the show. And he's got some stuff that he wants to talk with us about. And then a little bit later on in the second hour, we are going to be joined by Matt Asner. He is an autism dad, but he also is the executive director. I'm trying to get my computer to come back up. He is the executive director of Autism Speaks Southern California. So Matt will be with us a little bit later on. And we have some autism news from the Autism Daily Newscast a little bit later on today. And if we have time, we're going to hit you up with our healthy eating segment. So all of this and your questions and giveaways, I'm going to tell you what the giveaway for today is after this break. So stick with us. We'll be right back. Hi, we're at the Toys R Us in Porter Ranch, California. And Emily and I are going to take a little tour around the store and find some great toys for some great kids.
All right, let's go.
Come with us.
Yes.
Okay, bring your dinosaur and come on, let's go look at things in the game aisle.
Okay.
I know you love games.
I do look.
All right. So here we are in the game aisle, Emily, and I want to show you that there's all these games that you can get for kids of all ages. They're interactive and really remarkable. One of the hot toys this year and many other years is the Bop It toy.
Okay, so what about the Bop It is so reinforcing?
Well, you know what? It can be interactive. It can be a social game. It makes lots of noises. Sometimes they light up depending on the version. It helps to work on fine motor skills and it helps to work on fluency. This toy will grow with the child. And in fact, you can get it in different versions. This is a little bit more complex version. And up top here, we have one that's especially for older kids. It's called the Smash the Light. I would wait until a child is older to play with this one. So should we check out the Lego aisle?
Yes.
Okay, let's do it.
Go. So how can we use Legos to help our kids?
Well, they're really spectacular toys for our kids because they work on executive functions and planning. They're really colorful. You can work on colors and grouping and matching, counting because they have the little dots on the top. And if you have a younger child, you can start with the Duplo toys that are compatible with Lego and don't have the choking hazard.
So then as the kids get older, what's great about Legos, it looks like, is that there's all sorts of themes. We've got movies here and video games, so the kids can really connect with what's personal to them. So Legos are amazing, but what else do we have to see?
Let's look at some educational toys in the leapfrog aisle, shall we? Okay.
Okay, so what do you have here?
Well, we're in the leapfrog aisle. This particular toy, very popular this year, is a Leap Reader. It comes with a little pen, and it tells us that we're going to read, write, and listen, all skills that we want to work on with a child. This pen that's in this box, you can put it over different pages in the book. It will read aloud to the child. They can trace their letters. It reinforces them for doing a great job. It's a really spectacular toy for our younger kids that are working on reading, writing, and listening.
This looks like a lot of fun and a really great way to help our kids learn to read and write.
Absolutely.
What else are we going to play with today?
I think we should take a trip down the functional pretend play aisle. This is where you're going to find all the things that are like real, but the toy version. So I've got this lovely set here that's all fresh vegetables. So I'm teaching nutrition at the same time. They're all appropriately colored. I've got a knife so I can be cutting them too. This is really great play for a young child.
Shannon, I heard you got some toys that I get to play with now.
Yes, I'm going to take you to the demo table. We're going to let Emily play with some toys, and we're going to be giving some of these toys away on the show. But they're not just any toys. These are toys that are featured in this year's Toys R Us toy guide for differently abled children. And this is put together with the help of our friends at Lecotech.
So what do all these different icons mean?
These are different icons that tell us what skill this toy might help to develop in our children.
So can I play with the toys now?
Yes, it's time to play with the toys, Emily.
So I think I recognize this guy.
Yes, this is the ever popular and very sweet Elmo. But this is a very specific Elmo that teaches adaptive skills like zippering.
Almost yellow triangle zipper.
And so we get the reinforcement of Elmo talking to us when we do these things. There's a let's keep playing. So it encourages the child to continue to interact. And he's very reinforcing. When he giggles, I just want to hug him and play with him some more. Okay, so moving on, let's look at some Melissa and Doug toys. These are incredible toys. They'll last several different generations because they're made out of good quality wood.
Awesome.
And let's start with a lace and trace toy. Now, I happen to know that you love turtles,
I
Emily.
do love turtles.
And this is a set of farm animals lace and trace. And the child can pick out a color that they like for a lace.
All right.
And there are lots of different things that they can do with this. And I know it might seem like this is an old-fashioned toy, but you know, sometimes the old-fashioned toys are the best toys. Because what you're doing right now, Emily, is that you're using a lot of hand-eye coordination and you're using the pincer grasp. This is a precursor to writing right here. If you've got a child who's having difficulty holding a pencil, this is a really reinforcing way to work on this. And it comes in lots of different things. And then also for Melissa and Doug, we have this amazing switch and spin. Love this so much. This is a great cause and effect toy. As we start to put the gears together, we notice that when you turn one, another one can turn. You can rearrange this and do it in lots of different ways. There are 10 design boards, so you don't have to just do fish. There are other things that you can put there instead.
That's awesome.
Kids love this toy, and it's another Melissa and Doug toy.
Cool.
All right, let's take a look at some fun games.
So I found this game, and it's called Fibber. So Shannon, I'm going to need you to put on your fibbing glasses.
I want a fib.
All right. So this game is totally reinforcing, and it helps our kids to work on lying.
Yes, and that's something we really, I know it sounds strange, but we want to work on that because being able to tell a lie is something that helps with safety issues. And also being able to tell if somebody else is lying is a really useful life skill.
What you need to do is get rid of your cards without trying to grow your nose, kind of like Pinocchio.
Okay.
But if you get caught...
And so eventually you can have a whole string of noses attached to the end of your nose. Very colorful. Again, we can be working on the colors. Kind of hilarious. A kid's going to want to play this with mom or dad and see that mom is Pinocchio telling lots of lies. I like this game a lot.
This is a great game.
We've had a really great time at Toys R Us, and all of the toys that you see here on the table we're going to be giving away on the show. So stay tuned to find out how you can win one of these great toys.
Welcome back to Autism Live. You see before me this precious little cute puppy. Is she not the sweetest thing? This is Read With Me Violet. This is a fabulous toy put out by Leapfrog. And we showed this particular toy last week, but we are in this hour, we are giving away a Read With Me Violet and a Read With Me Scout. These are the cutest little toys. Scout is green and Violet obviously is this lovely lilac violet color. And they each come with 5 little books, and you can see on her collar it has these color-coded numbers. And when your child takes out the book, it has a number on the book. So if it says number 1 on it, then they press the number 1, and Violet will read along with them with the book. She also has sensors in different places, so you can press on her head.
Oh my
and she
God.
talks to you. There are different things that her paws do, but one of the things that I love about these cute and cuddly plush dogs, besides the fact,
happy.
yes, and
Show me your biggest smile if you feel happy too.
I love that. In addition to helping reading skills, pre-reading skills by reading along with the dog will also ask them questions about what's happening on the page, so it's building reading comprehension. And there is a feature on the dog that you can turn to sleep mode, so that when the child is going, it's time for lights out and snuggle up, they can still cuddle the dog and the dog won't start talking.
Read another story.
So Violet's going to talk for a little while.
I like that.
I think
Can
that's.
I give you
I don't
a
remember
pet?
what the
I like
button.
to
See, I'm
play.
never going to turn her off
Let's
now.
play together.
But in any case, so we're giving away a Read With Me Violet and a Read With Me Scout. Scout is green and Violet is violet. And so this hour, watch for the phrase or the word that appears on the screen. And in your subject heading, make sure that you put either Read With Me Violet or Read With Me Scout so that we know which color you want. We have one of each to give away, a total of two, to the viewer who has the appropriate response with the appropriate heading. So Leapfrog, quality toys that help our kids learn, Read With Me Violet and Read With Me Scout. Absolutely love. This is a great gift to give to someone that you have on your holiday list. I'm going to put Violet over here. And I'm also going to welcome our fabulous guest for the rest of this hour, Mr. Alex Plank from wrongplanet.net. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
And you've got a recent study that came out that you wanted to talk about today.
Yes, I was. It's interesting because you hear oxytocin being sort of mentioned a lot.
Yeah, absolutely.
In regards to autism and how people with autism sort of need more oxytocin to be more social. The thing about it that I found interesting is that these studies come out year after year, and I don't think oxytocin can pass the blood-brain barrier. So I wonder how effective it actually is, because when reading the studies, you see this description about the results from, and it seems like it's very mixed. Some people didn't notice anything at all. Some people swore by it. So I think that the jury's still out.
And of course, we're referring to this new study that has just come out from the Yale Science Lab that 17 children between the ages of 8 and 16 were given a nasal spray of oxytocin. They call oxytocin the love hormone because it's supposed to promote like good feelings
when
of
you
well-being.
hug someone, that is released in the brain.
Okay.
That is for sure. And
So if you have more of it, then we're supposed to. Yes, I know it's a
mothers get it when they,
Yeah, it's a big pregnancy discussion, but what happened supposedly, according to the Yale Science study, was that they showed the children things that pictures that were, some were social in nature, that were people, and others were toys, and their study seemed to show that their responses to the social stimuli was increased from oxytocin. And so you're saying there's a little bit of a question about how effective it would actually be, because it wasn't effective with everyone.
Yeah, and this is only a small group of people ages 8 to 16, and there's only 17 children apparently that were in the study.
Yeah.
So it doesn't seem like a very big
sampling.
sample size.
And yet we see it all over the news in the last couple of days that, people are saying oxytocin, it's so great for autism, and that it's going to help build social skills.
And I think that there's no doubt that oxytocin promotes social. But the thing is, will it work as a nasal spray, or can you actually take it and have it affect your brain? Because it's one of those chemicals that doesn't really like to cross the blood-brain barrier, which means it's hard to affect the brain chemistry with it.
Yeah, very, very interesting.
So it's mixed.
And so this leads me to another question that I want to ask you about. If you have great social skills, and I sometimes feel like my social skills, that I could up my game to some extent. And if there, I think a lot of people feel like that, whether they're on the spectrum or not. But if there were a nasal spray that you could take that would make you more social and more interested in social things, would you be interested in that?
It depends on how long-lasting the effects are. Because you don't want to be taking this spray and constantly want to be social. I mean, there's times that people don't want to be social. I think that if it actually was successful in making you more social and could help you with being better at social situation, I would definitely recommend it. But as I said, this is all theoretical.
Yeah, it is theoretical.
The study is doesn't really conclude anything. These newspapers love to find a new study that comes out and say this is the new thing, and then people have this idea that scientists are always changing their minds, when in reality there's no conclusion yet.
Right. The media coverage is often a little interesting in the way that they portray things.
Misleading.
Yes, I think
if
that's
not
a better,
inaccurate or
yes,
factually
absolutely
correct.
It sensationalizes it and puts something in a headline that isn't accurate. But it's an interesting question, because I know a lot of people who, both on and off the spectrum, who consider alcohol, if they have a drink in a social situation, they're not going to have as much anxiety, and they consider that something that helps them in social situations. And to me, this seems like something that isn't that different to me, that you're taking a drug to feel less
I think there's a difference, though, because I think with alcohol, what it does is it lowers your inhibitions, and it makes you more sociable in the sense that you feel less social anxiety.
Right.
So, as a crutch, I think, as temporarily, of course, it will make you more. I mean, that's just human nature. You have a drink and you become more sociable. I think also, though, a lot of that has to do with the fact that other people are drinking and become more sociable. So, I mean, you don't necessarily have to drink to get the benefits from the alcohol the consumption. I mean, if other people are drinking, they're going to be more sociable.
But you think that's vastly different with the oxytocin? If they find that the oxytocin is effective, is that any different than having a drink of alcohol?
I think it's a completely different thing. I think that what this does is it actually promotes the social area of your brain, whereas alcohol
instead of inhibiting other things.
Well, alcohol also has a lot of negative side effects.
Absolutely.
So I think that it's a dangerous road to sort of.
Absolutely. And as far as we know, no negative side effects to the nasal spray. Very interesting. And it brings up lots of other interesting questions. And you've got other things that we want to talk about. We're going to take a short break. And we're going to come back more with Alex Plank from wrongplanet.net. And we encourage you, if you have questions for Alex or about what we just talked about, feel free to write in on our live feature now. We'll be back after these messages. Stick with us.
Hello, fellow activists. In our last segment, we talked about step number 2, educate yourself. Step number 3 is get support. Now, any journey can feel overwhelming if you feel like you're walking it alone. Well, you're far from alone, because with 1 in 50 kids diagnosed with autism today, there are a lot of us out there. Of course, there's always the issue of financial support. Now, there's a handful of organizations out there that offer financial support to families in need. ACT Today, or Autism Care and Treatment Today, is one of them. Visit our website at www.act-today.org to find out more about our grant process. I want to talk about a different kind of support today, emotional support. Now, you can get that from other travelers on this path. Some of the best advice I've ever received is from the moms of other kids with autism who went to school with Wyatt or were involved with programs with him. Then there are the pioneers. These are the families that have gone through this years ago, and there was very little information out there. All of these people seem to have the desire to pay it forward. Now, one of them, Lisa Ackerman, who is one of my mentors, started an organization called TACA, Talk About Curing Autism. She actually took the concept of mentors and support groups and made it available to everybody. You can go to their website, talkaboutcuringautism.org, to find out more. During the first and most difficult year after Wyatt's diagnosis, I wrote an email to close family and friends, letting them know what was going on and the challenges our family was facing, and why we dropped out of sight. I was amazed at the outpouring of love and affection and all the help I received from that email. First, you have to be vulnerable. You can't be afraid to ask. Try this out. Could you cook me a meal? Are you going to the market? Can you pick me up a few things? Could your kids play with my kid and make them feel included? Or can you come over and clean my house? Well, maybe not that last one, except with your best friend. And maybe the best support of all is having someone that listens, and that doesn't cost a dime. So until next time, surround yourself with the loving kindness of others and keep the faith.
Welcome back to Autism Live. Our very special guest with us right now is Alex Plank from wrongplanet.net. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Thanks for having me.
We're talking a little bit about science this morning, and I'm kind of loving this conversation. So you had another study you wanted to talk about?
Yes, and this was a study that came from a researcher at Indiana University, and actually another researcher at Rutgers. And what it talks about is the movement of someone reaching for an object. Mm-hmm. And people with autism, and everyone, when you reach for an object, there's all these micro movements that were previously regarded as noise and not relevant, and sort of just like, there's not a smooth curve of reaching for an object. You have small little micro movements. However, what they found is that people in autism have the micro movements that can actually show you that they have autism. You can like detect autism based on these micro movements.
Amazing. And so I know I just briefly had a chance, as you were talking about it before the break, to look at the study, and you were saying that they were able to break it down as something like 240 pictures a second as they were reaching to make to touch something on the screen.
They use a camera with 240 frames per second. And that shows not only the movements but changes in speed, and they can do it down to like milliseconds in terms of accuracy.
And not only can this help predict autism, but also the severity of the autism. Is that correct, Alex?
Well,
I think that's what it is.
the jitter. There's like this jitter, and depending on the severity of the autism that someone has, the jitter seems to conform to a certain level.
It's very, very interesting. And so is it more micro movements or less, or they have a specific kind? Do you know? I find this fascinating.
I wasn't able to tell if they were specific movements, but I think that there were fluctuations even in resting. So like even if the hand is not moving,
there are micro movements.
Yeah, and those can be indicative of whether or not someone has autism or what the severity level is.
It's so fascinating to me because we're always looking for new and better ways to diagnose, and we're always looking for ways to diagnose that remove subjectivity from the picture. So many people will go to get a diagnosis, whether it's a child or an adult who feels that, they want to go and get the diagnosis, and you're really at the mercy of the diagnostician. There is very specific criteria. It just changed recently, but you're at the mercy of the diagnostician and the moment, because we've talked about this before, that there are different moments that I could bring my son in and he could appear in a way that he doesn't necessarily appear 4 hours later.
You know what really bothers me, though?
What bothers
you? Is when you have a psychologist who completely discounts autism as a possibility with someone who clearly would be diagnosed and should be diagnosed, because they have this theory that it's overdiagnosed or whatever they are thinking, which is not scientifically valid. I mean, and the scientific community as a whole has a standard of what autism is, and there's a standard test. And I got an email on Wrong Planet yesterday, actually, from this 15-year-old girl, and she told me that her psychologist told her that she was gifted, and she linked me to an article on the psychologist's blog explaining that all these gifted people don't have autism, and how this is just students that are gifted and are socially isolated because they're so gifted. And I remember when I was in the gifted program, and there was a program full of people who were like higher IQ at our school, and they took us out, and even in that class I had trouble getting along with the kids there. So I don't think it has anything to do with gifted or not. And I also think that is discounting the fact that there are many geniuses that have autism, and that really bothered me, because this girl clearly needs to get diagnosed, and the psychologist is basically saying no, and she looked up the stuff she was able to figure out on her own, a 15-year-old girl, that she had autism. And obviously she's not qualified to diagnose, but I think that there are certain traits that it's pretty obvious. You don't really need a medical diagnosis to see what's right in front of your face.
But people are people, and they bring their preconceived notions, and it's impossible for them to, they should be able to, at that point as a psychologist, divorce themselves from what their personal beliefs are and what the diagnostic criteria are. But we've heard that story time and time again, that whether it's kids or adults or teenagers who other people would clearly give them a diagnosis, but the individual does not. And so I love something like this that would have a way of having a test that isn't subjective. If you can map the micro movements and say
it would be nice to be able to say one way or the other whether or not someone's on the autism spectrum. I think, though, that there's probably, this is not a foolproof test. I don't think there's any way to actually have a test. I think that this is probably wishful thinking to think that this is actually the new way to find
It'll
if
be
someone has
interesting
autism.
to see.
Looking at micro movements in their hands, that seems a little far-fetched.
Well,
but,
and because it's a big spectrum, I would want to leave room for the fact that it's not going to be one size fits all. I don't know that we're ever going to have a one size fits all, absolutely not subjective test. But interesting. I'd love to know what the connection is between the micro movements and autism, to know why the brain is reacting in such a way that those micro movements, I mean, we all participate in micro movements, but because these are distinct to autism, it would be interesting, and I'm assuming that they'll do more research on that to figure out what the connection is.
Yeah.
And why it's happening that way. That to me is almost more fascinating than the test. Now, we've had somebody write in a question for Alex, but I'm not following, so I'm going to ask you to write in some more information, because what they wrote is, what's your best thing about exams for Alex? So I don't know if that's, you want to know test tips? Yeah, do you want test taking tips, or is it something else? So we're going to take a break. We're going to give you a second to clarify. Hopefully you'll write back in and clarify.
Either way, we could talk about exams.
Absolutely, we can talk about that with Alex. So we're going to take a break, and we'll be back after these messages.
Hi guys, welcome back to Smarty. For December, I thought we'd work on an activity that is a handmade gift for someone who is super special in your life. It could be for a teacher, family member, or a friend. So let's get to it. The materials you'll be needing for this activity are cardstock, pencil, glue, and crayons. This activity is making a monogram letter filled with crayons. This activity is great because it works on the pincer grasp, and also planning ahead, since you're going to be having to break the crayons to fit the inside of the letter. So to begin this activity, first things first, mom or dad or guardian is going to have to draw out the letter for the kid. If that's a little difficult for you, you can always just print something out from your computer and then glue it on the heavy cardstock, all right? I'm going to go ahead and draw mine freehand. So now that my letter M is drawn out, now it's time to fill it in with the crayons. So I'm going to take them and place them onto it accordingly and try to break them into pieces that'll fit the spaces perfectly.
See all the colors in the sky tonight.
So now that you figured out the sizes of the crayons to fill in your letter, now take your glue and fill in the space and start laying them back in. Now we're going to let this dry for a little while. Once your monogram is done drying, feel free to decorate any way you feel. I'm going to write a little message, but you can do whatever you want.
Stars come out and swirl around so high.
So here's my finished monogram letter. Hopefully Ms. Mackenzie is going to love her gift, and I hope you enjoy doing this activity with me. Until next time, guys, craft on. Bye.
When you see me flying by your side.
Welcome back to Autism Live. Our very special guest here in the studio with us is Alex Plank from wrongplanet.net. We had a question written in by a viewer. We haven't yet received your clarification, but we think that the question, it says, what is your best thing about exams for Alex? So let's talk a little bit. We're hoping that it's, what are some tips for taking tests? And if it isn't, make sure that you're writing to us and letting us know what you really really want us to be talking about, but it's a great topic anyway.
It's a very important topic for people in school. Once you're out of school, it doesn't matter anymore, fortunately.
But you know, you still have to take tests when you're an adult. I've had to take many tests for whatever reason. I mean, even if you're going to get a job at Walmart, you have to take a test.
Actually, those personality tests at Walmart.
They're hard.
They actually are biased against people with autism. They did a whole article, the AP, where they quoted people from my website in a thread about these tests, about how you just needed to figure out what the right answers were, even if you didn't believe them, and if you answered that way, you would be more likely to get hired.
Yeah, I think that's true for everybody. I think those kinds of tests are painful. But, you know, there have been lots of times as an adult that I've had to take tests, but especially while you're in school, you know that's going to happen on a regular basis.
Yes, and it's also one of the most stressful things, because you go in there and you take the test and you don't know what the outcome is, often for a week or more, and there's a lot of worrying before it, and you have to study, and then there's the whole aspect of taking the test, and that's in of itself sometimes a nightmare for a lot of people, especially when you have trouble with sensory issues. You could have issues with people talking or noise coming from outside in the hall, or the noise of like the ceiling fan. You could be very perceptive to all these different noises that distract you instead of what's going on the piece of paper in front of you.
Sure. So what tips do you have, Alex, for somebody to help them, their individual self, when taking a test?
Well, it really depends on the individual what the right plan of action is. But for me, I found that getting extended time was important for certain subjects where I wasn't necessarily as excited about, or I wasn't able to focus as much. Because people with autism, if you're taking a test on your favorite subject, there might be tons of outside noises, but you might stay focused on on the test. However, if it's another subject that you aren't interested in, it might be almost impossible to stay focused. So that extended time is very helpful. It helped me a lot, and that's true with SATs and all of those other tests that you have to take as well, not just for your classes.
And you can ask for those accommodations, and whether you're in high school or college or elementary school, there's a process through which you can ask for those accommodations.
Yeah, and a lot of times the process is almost more of a hassle than
the test taking.
I remember in college, we had a great disability services coordinator, and she left. And after that, it became incredibly difficult for me to take tests. I had to fill out forms in advance, including for pop quizzes.
Right.
And they send you off into this other room that's not with all the other kids. So you can't ask questions to the teacher like you could in the class. And you also can't necessarily have as much concentration, because when you're in a classroom, if there's noise out in the hallway, the professor might be able to go out and yell at the people. Right. When you're just a single person and people are talking outside the room that you're in a little small room, it might actually be louder. There might be noises in the room that you can't control. So I actually take the approach of talking with the professor and approaching them directly. I talked to one professor I was having a hard time with in school with the tests, and I said, listen, I don't really want to go through the disability services office because there's so much red tape. She's like, you're right, there's so much red tape, I hate dealing with them. And she's like, well, just tell me what you need and we'll work with it.
There you go.
And that's what we did.
So having a conversation sometimes can be the thing.
And that's just the best thing to do, to be your own self-advocate and to speak up for what you need, and not to do it in an antagonistic manner. A lot of times I see a lot of kids on the spectrum, teenagers, young adults in college, who have this mentality that they're fighting for something. You're not fighting for something. You're just having a conversation and presenting your needs. And sometimes the teachers won't do it.
And then you can always find the way in which to fight. Right, you can find another class or another teacher.
You don't want to fight at all, though. It's never gonna come out good. The only thing that you can really fight for is if you're not getting the services that you're entitled to, and you kind of have to fight. But comes down way further down the line than most people realize. You can get a lot further with a smile and seeing eye to eye and just explaining yourself.
Yes, and I think that's really important information, but I also want to make sure that people know that you do have rights, and that I think it's much more likely that you can come from a relaxed position and negotiate something and be kind when you know that the law is on your side.
Yes. That's true.
And the ADA an idea, and all these other laws make it possible for you to get what you need one way or the other. But if you're coming from that place of, I already know that I'm going to end up getting what I want, I just have to follow a process, and I'm going to start with the nicest possible, least intrusive thing, would you say that that's...
But you know what? Sometimes I think you're entirely right. I agree 100%. You start with the nice, and if required, you escalate.
Yeah.
However, I think in most cases, it's not worth the fight. I think that if you're in a college course with a professor who's not seeing eye to eye, and you really want to get these rights like that you have, I think that it's probably going to be an uphill battle the entire time with this professor.
Yeah, I agree.
So if you're in the probationary period, or not probation, whatever the period is where you can change classes, you might switch to another professor who's teaching the same thing.
Yeah.
See, that's a lot easier than having to deal with like someone who's going to make your life miserable. And yes, eventually you might get your...
Yes, I agree with you, and I think everybody needs to make choices in the moment.
This is in college, of course, where you can have choices, and I mean, and obviously in elementary school it's a little harder to switch around.
Well, and I think it's also...
You have less leeway.
I think it's judgment call no matter what. There have been many times with my son that there have been things that I've said, I don't have time on my bandwidth to fight that. But there are other times when I've said, I have to fight this for my child, because every child coming behind him will benefit from it as well as my child right now. And I think it's, case by case, judgment by judgment.
But I think that's also wishful thinking, because you might win the fight with this professor,
right,
and then they might just go on doing the same thing to the next person until they bring up an issue. So
right,
it might not actually benefit people. I'm just saying that
I agree
you
with
have to learn to pick your battles.
I think that that's really, and you should come with me from time to time, because I need to be reminded of this, that everything is not a battle.
Because I used to have this attitude that I was always right, and I usually was right. I mean, I'm not going to lie, I was usually right.
Yeah.
Probably 99 out of 100 times I was right. However, I'd say only 20% of the times was it worth fighting. And maybe half, I don't know what the actual percentage is, but...
Yeah. As I said, you should come with me more often, because I go into battle mode. And I think a lot of parents go into battle mode because we had to start that way. And I literally, I will say to my husband, whenever something happens, I go, well, I'm getting out the body armor, because I'm girding up. I'm ready for the battle.
And realize that the battle mode probably has more of a place, and definitely has more of a place in the lower K through 12 system, where you actually do have to fight for getting these services. In college, it's a lot different, because you have a lot more leeway. People are more open to making accommodations. You might just be able to get an extended time on a test, even if you didn't have a disability, if you asked the professor, But in elementary school, a teacher would be like, in the real world, you don't get extensions, which is not true.
It's not true.
In the real world, you take as much time as you want.
It's true. It's true. But I do want to bring up, too, that you also, there are things that I have seen that you have looked at and said, this is worth the fight.
Yeah, of course.
You're very much an activist. And,
I agree.
And so I don't want people to get the idea that Alex is all go with the flow.
No, I don't.
Because
I'm not like that at all.
I look at the state of autism in France, and you have clearly said, this is a case where I can't stand by. I have to call attention to how horrible this is, to the point where you're making a documentary about it. Because there are times when you have to pick your battles and you go, this is... But I love this idea that only 20% of the time is it worth it.
That's just a number I threw out there.
No, but I think that that's probably pretty accurate.
They say that 37% of statistics are made up on the spot, but I think it's a little higher than that.
But you just made up that statistic.
Yeah. But more on test taking. I think that another thing that's important is if you have essays that you're typing them. Yeah. And I don't see why in this day and age you would be writing with a pencil anyway. It just doesn't make any sense.
And so asking for that accommodation.
It shouldn't be accommodation, really. I mean, it should just be something that you should be allowed to do if you're writing essays.
Well, I can think of many times, though, I'm an ex-college professor, and I can think of many times when they would hand out, of course, that was in a different time when everything wasn't so computerized, but people hand out a test, and they want you to do short essay or, on a piece of paper, I just went through this argument with one of the aides at my son's school about how my son can't write to fill in a blank, and how this was huge drama, and we must get him to fill in the blank. And I was saying, why? Because life isn't going to be built around fill in the blank. He's going to be using a computer. I don't understand why this is a big issue. Yeah. And yet the argument they were making was that there's still lots of pen and paper tasks.
There is nothing that's a pen and paper task at all. I cannot think of anything that you can't type out and turn in.
And that's a measure of where we're going.
You can print checks out. You can.
Exactly.
The only thing you need to do on a check is to sign it.
Yeah.
You can attach a digital signature now on documents.
There you go.
I mean, I can't think of anything where you actually need to use pen and paper.
I agree. I'm in that camp too.
And I think that's pretty much, most people believe that now.
I think that most forward-thinking people think that.
Most smart people.
I didn't say that. I just said forward thinking. Okay, we have to go and take a break, and I don't know if we're losing Alex.
No, let's not lose me. I want to keep talking. I have so much more to say.
We're going to keep Alex for another segment. But we're going to take a break and go to the A Word. This is the ongoing documentary being made here at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders, following a little boy, Jack Riley, as he has gone through his early intensive intervention, behavioral intervention. So take a look. This is the A Word.
I know a cute little blue-eyed boy, and his name is Jack.
Jack Riley.
He got a big, warm, blue-eyed soul that makes your heart beat fast.
Exciting.
I say Jack, Jack, Jack is my buddy. Jack is my buddy. Everybody around is so down with Jack.
Hi, Diana.
Hi. What are you looking at? Is this Diana?
Hi, Diana.
Hi, Jack Riley. How are you?
Jack Riley has been in preschool for a few days now, with Jessica as his shadow. Today, his team meets to discuss how school is going, such as how Jack Riley's behaviors have been, and how his teacher is handling him, and what they can do to help.
The first 2 days I was kind of feeling her out because she's actually new to teaching preschool, I guess, in general. So I didn't want to make her a little bit nervous. I was telling her, it's always okay to reinforce appropriate behavior. Don't forget to do that.
Yeah.
So I was showing her a lot with other kids as well as him. Looks like there's room for growth. She just seems to is trying to get into the whole hang of preschool. But I just reminded her why I'm there, to slowly wean myself out and have you take over.
Yes. How much are you able to back off and let him kind of do his thing?
Outside play, pretty much 95%.
Awesome.
So
It's just the play.
It's just the inside play.
The tantrums, what's evoking the tantrums?
It was snack time, because they provide the snack at school, and yesterday was bagels and cream cheese and diced pears, and he wanted neither. But instead of saying, hey, I don't want that, he started to flip out. And then I reminded him he had goldfish, he just has to use words appropriately.
Good job.
And then after that, he wanted milk, but he didn't have milk.
You're almost done with the level. Okay.
So he got really, really upset, and then he felt that if he screamed it louder, he would get it. So I said, no, we just didn't have it. So I told him once, and then it wasn't okay. I had to pull him out because the other kids were getting a little bit uneasy. So I didn't want to direct attention to him. So I let him have it outside for 2-3 minutes. After he calmed down, I just told him, you don't have it. So either drink water or drink nothing. That's just what we have. Sorry, dude. And he was fine after that.
If you're seeing that as a reoccurring thing, then we can just teach them the rule. If they don't have what you want, you say, oh, I wish they had milk, but okay, teach them the replacement thing to say, and then we'll take data on in vivo. Is he able to use the replacement behavior that we've taught?
What'd you have for snack yesterday at school? What was there? But you didn't like it. What was there? Do you remember?
Peaches. And peaches are good.
What else?
Peaches are peaches good for me?
I love peaches. I think they're so good, and they're very good for you. They have lots of vitamins.
And what else?
I don't like them.
Yeah.
That's okay. You can just say, I don't like peaches. So you give the rule,
Okay.
have him practice, and then we'll take data on if he's able to implement the rule.
Should I be packing him a juice box? And
No. I think it's good to have him kind of be okay with if it's not there, it's not there.
As much as you can fade back. Only jump in during those times where he really needs you so we can.
So if I say, tell me about a dog, and then you would have to say, A dog has fur, it has a long tail and 4 legs. Okay?
Some dogs.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask you something. Tell me 3 things about Steven.
Steven is a teacher.
He's a teacher?
He just from his bat cave.
He came from his bat cave?
And he doesn't live on the street.
And he what?
And he doesn't live on the street.
And he doesn't live on a street? Okay, I'll take it. Tell me 3 things about a kitty cat.
A kitty cat's just an animal,
It's an animal,
and it's somebody's pet.
And it's somebody's pet.
And Sloan has one. And Sloan has a dog.
No, so it's a pet, it's an animal, and
it's fat.
And it's fat? Can you say something else about it? How many legs does it have?
4.
It has 4 legs. Okay, so tell me 3 things about a cat.
A cat
You said
is
it's a-
somebody's pet.
Somebody's pet?
And he has fur.
And it's fur,
And he kind of has 4 legs.
And he has 4 legs! Very good. Tell me 3 things about Lainey Grace.
Lainey Grace is a baby.
She's a baby?
And she's 1 year old.
And she's 1 year old?
And she's my baby.
And she's your baby?
That's your baby?
She's my sister.
She's my sister.
Okay, so all by yourself. Tell me 3 things about Lainey Grace. All by yourself, go.
Lainey is small and
She's
1
small.
year old.
She's 1 year old.
And she's pretty cool.
And she's pretty cool? I think she's pretty cool too.
The show, Autism Live. Oh, thank you. We're back. So, welcome back to Autism Live. We're here with Matt and Shannon.
And you're Alex.
And I'm Alex.
And
Alex Plank.
Yes, that's correct.
And Alex is from wrongplanet.net, and Matt is a wonderful dad, and he is also the executive director of Autism Speaks Southern California. So welcome both of you.
Thank
sort
you.
of last minute that we have both of you on.
It was my
together.
idea.
It was Alex's
I take
idea.
full credit.
Alex likes to come in and produce when he's here.
I'm always willing to join Alex in whatever he does.
Well, and it's
think,
because Alex is just a joy and a treat to be around.
He is.
I said to him the other day, when you leave a room, everybody says, I just want to spend more time with Alex.
I do too.
I would
I've
love it
never
if people
heard
said
anyone
that.
say that.
I know, but people say it behind your back, and I'm the queen of telling
They
people
do.
what gets said behind their back. But isn't that a wonderful
No, you
thing?
know what? That's interesting about Alex. Because instead of saying bad things behind his back,
Yeah.
people say good things behind your back.
Yeah.
They probably also say bad things at some point.
No, I haven't heard anything, but it's a nice place to be, Alex. You should be proud of
I
yourself.
would rather people say things to my face.
Well, there is that, but we live in a culture where people don't want to hand out too many compliments. I don't know why.
Hey, I always give you a hug when I see you, don't I?
Yes, well, you didn't give me a hug today.
Right.
All right.
The moment of
There we go.
togetherness.
There we go.
So, did you have something in particular you wanted to talk about with Matt? Because I have things in particular that I want to talk about with Matt later on. But you had said you wanted to be here for a segment.
I thought that it would just be great to have his energy added into this
Absolutely.
conversation. So if you have a agenda, that would be.
Well, first I would like to say,
So
because
it's all
the
on
three of
you.
us, that's okay. I would like to say, since the 3 of us haven't been together since we were, and I know we talked a little bit about this last week, but we didn't have Alex's input, that we were all together to do tier 2 of your grant
Yes.
review for Autism Speaks.
Thank you.
And I had the joy and the treat of sitting next to Alex while we were going through this process. And of course, we don't want to name any specific names of grants that we looked at because that's all hush-hush. But the process itself was very interesting.
Yes.
And I really enjoyed sitting next to you and hearing your comments about some of the things.
Unfortunately, they gave me all the grants that had nothing to do with autism. No, I'm joking, sort of.
Yes. But there were a wide array of grant submissions, the people looking for a grant. And we should let you tell a little bit about, how many grants you're giving away and what the dollar amount is and what the purpose is.
Well, last night we had a board meeting, and we actually went through all the remaining grants, the ones that were still in the mix. And we actually made our decision last night, so that we were going to fund possibly 22 grants.
Wow.
At $5,000 each. So
That's
it's
incredible.
a little over $100,000.
And these are all different kinds of organizations over Southern California, and each grant had a different purpose,
Yeah.
different things that they were looking to fund.
Yep.
And at some point in the grant, there had to be some element of it that dealt with at least a percentage of individuals with autism. Those percentages were different, and I think we can all understand why that would be, that there are sometimes when you're looking for inclusion, an inclusion experience, and so maybe, 40% of the people that it's going to affect are going to be on the autism spectrum, but that wouldn't take away from...
And inclusion is incredibly important. That's
absolutely.
One of the most important
So
things
just to clarify in terms of, but it was a wide array of different organizations across Southern California.
Well, and that's one of the great things about it was, I think when people see the list of people who are going to be getting grants, they're going to see a wide range of geography.
Which is great.
That made me very happy last night.
What I think every grant that I looked at had in common was that they were all helping directly individuals in the community. And it was very great to see that in grants, because I know Autism Speaks funds tons of scientific research, which is really important, but I think that it's more important to help the community.
And I think this is our chance to fund things that wouldn't normally get funded, by Autism Speaks, and it's great because I think it's really going to help the community, and that's what we want to do.
Absolutely, and so we would be so remiss if we didn't talk about where this money came from, because I'm a big fan of the organization that.
Yep. This money came from a campaign that we have at Sprouts every year. This is the second year we've done it, and this year we raised $165,000 in California, and that money is actually all being put into grants inside California.
Which is really remarkable. And
so Central and Northern will be getting $65,000, and LA, Southern California will be getting a little over $100,000.
So when you go to Sprouts and you're going through the line and you see that lovely sign that says Autism Speaks, and you get the opportunity when you swipe your card, would you like to donate a portion of something from your card? You can either round up from, let's say your bill is $49.27. You can round up 50. And make it an even $50, or you can add more.
Yeah.
That's where this money goes, and I think that's remarkable.
All of that money goes to our grants here in Southern California.
I think that's absolutely remarkable, and we have to thank Sprouts. I'm a big fan of theirs. I love to go to Sprouts and have said, it's a great place to get a lot of the things that some of our kids need. So
they don't have one near me, unfortunately.
They're an amazing partner. I bet they do. Where do you live?
I bet they do.
Beverly Hills.
I think they probably have one.
Well, I know there's one in Burbank.
I think there was one in Culver City, isn't there?
I think there's one in Culver City.
And that's pretty close to you.
That's true.
We need to go on an outing, you and I, to want to come with us?
Yeah.
We'll go to Sprouts because there's cool things in Sprouts.
We do a little segment.
Things. I've talked about them before on the show. I've waxed poetic about them. I kind of love Sprouts. And they have, one of the things, because I'm all about making it affordable, right? We have other things that we want to spend our money on for autism, but they have this great Wednesday flyer thing. So, and usually most businesses have a flyer, it comes out on a certain day, and the things go, but they overlap their flyers. So when you go on Wednesday, you get all the benefit of last week's flyer and this week's flyer.
Now, and that used to be Henry's, right? Henry's used to do that.
The one in Burbank used to be Henry's, but Sprouts has been around for a while, and then they bought some of the old Henry's.
Because I know Henry's used to do it, and because there was a Henry's in Woodland Hills, I think.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
And they used to do it, and then they became
I've
Sprouts.
never heard of Henry's.
Because they're not in
they don't
existence anymore. Now they're Sprouts.
They're now Sprouts, new and improved. But lots of great things, healthy choices and things, a lot of GF, CF things.
Basically, if you like Whole Foods, you'll love Sprouts.
Absolutely.
So
it's a good place.
Yes.
And they give money for autism.
They do.
Which, I would love to thank more companies for doing that kind of thing. So they should step up and do that, more companies.
Exactly. I agree. A lot more companies.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah.
Absolutely. It's a good thing to do. It's a feel-good thing to do. And so we appreciate Sprouts for doing that. And when I think about all the people that's going to help, all the individuals that it's going to help, it's really very remarkable.
I don't think it's just a feel-good thing. I think it's a responsibility that people should, and corporations should be responsible in that regard.
I agree.
I feel good about what I did this morning.
What did you do this morning?
I gave 5 iPads to an organization this morning.
That's a wonderful thing.
Very happy about that.
Do we get to know which organization?
Tierra del Sol.
Wonderful.
Yeah. I've loved the iPad stuff because there's so much that an iPad can do for someone with autism, not just with language, but with learning and developing skills. But as a communication device, though, it's just amazing.
You know what I did for my 50th birthday, which was not this most recent birthday, but the year before, I was able to set up a first giving fund for an iPad to be given to a child. So instead of people giving me a gift, they could give however much. Wow. And so a child, and it went to Autism Care and Treatment Today for them to give from their iPad fund.
See, I was selfish on my 50th birthday. I mourned.
Well, I did that too, but I didn't have to unwrap gifts and mourn at the same time. I got to know that it was going to have an effect on somebody else's life. Sure. Which at 50, I thought, you know, what better present could I have than knowing somebody got the ability to communicate.
That's great.
It is great, and I love that. Would encourage more people to do things like that.
Get a case, though, because they're very easy to break.
Yes, absolutely.
An OtterBox?
I'm not going to endorse any specific one, but that is...
Okay. We don't want to do that. I like the nude myself, but I'm not endorsing anything. But a very good...
Actually, I have a case that I can give away to someone. I'm going to probably do that.
Oh, that's
it's because it's purple and it's like doesn't...
Oh, that's my favorite color.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if it would be your style. It's like super...
We digress.
I like purple.
We digress. I have a purple puppy somewhere. Okay, which brings me to, we have to take a break and we have to come back and talk about the gift that we're giving away in this hour. So stick with us. I'm going to be back more with Alex Plank and Matt Asner after these messages.
So the holidays are fast approaching, and you might be looking for a fun cookie recipe you can make with your kids. Well, thankfully, Breads from Anna has given us a great sugar cookie recipe that we can make that's gluten-free. So let's get started. Here's some of the things you'll need. For the dough, you'll need 1.5 cups of vegetable shortening, 2 cups of sugar, 2 tablespoons vanilla extract, 1 tablespoon almond extract, 4 eggs, 3 cups of Breads from Anna dairy-free flour, 2 cups potato starch, 2 teaspoons baking powder, and 1 teaspoon of salt. And for the icing, you'll need 1/2 cup of shortening, 1/2 cup of butter, 1 tablespoon vanilla, 4 cups confectioner's sugar, and 2 tablespoons of almond milk. To start with, we're going to just mix together our liquids. So we've got our shortening, eggs, our vanilla, and our almond. And we're just going to go ahead and cream these together. So once that's all creamed, we're going to go ahead and add our dry ingredients, starting with our Breads from Anna flour. And we've got our potato starch, and we've got our baking powder and salt. We're also going to go ahead and put in 2 cups of sugar. Alright, once that's all blended together, we're going to go ahead and cover this and chill for about an hour or overnight in your fridge. So it's been an hour, our dough should be cool. So we're going to try to roll this out to about 1/2 inch to about 3/4 inch in thickness. So while I'm rolling out the dough, I preheated the oven to 400 degrees. And I have a baking stone preheating in the oven that I'm going to set these on. But if you don't have a baking stone, that's okay. You can just use a cookie sheet with parchment paper. Now you're going to take your cutter and just cut out all your cookies. Alright, so I'm gathering my cookies, my little dudes here. That's good. Let's go ahead and put these in the oven. And these should be good to go in about 6 minutes. So while our cookies are baking, we can go ahead and start making the frosting that we're going to use once they're done. So we're going to need our shortening. We're going to go ahead and add our butter. We're going to add our vanilla. We're going to start to blend this. Okay, so once we've creamed these together, we're going to go ahead and add our sugar just a bit at a time. And last but not least, we're going to add our almond milk just to soften it up a little bit. Alright, that looks pretty good. So once our cookies are done baking and we've given them time to cool, we can go ahead and frost them all. Okay, so our cookies are ready. Let's go get them. These look pretty good. Now's the part where you get to be creative with your kids. Feel free to ice these in different colors, with sprinkles, however you want. We've got our cool cookies here, our homemade icing. All right, these look great. For more of these recipes and to possibly win some of your own breads from Anna, go to our Facebook page at facebook.com/autismlive, and we'll see you there soon. Thanks for joining me.
Welcome back to Autism Live. I just want to mention that today's, for this hour, the toy of the hour is this fabulous farmer's market sorting toy set. I love this because you can teach colors. You can teach sorting by colors. It comes with all the little bins, and it comes with all the fruits and vegetables. So you're all teaching nutrition and helping to desensitize. We've shown on the A word, the little boy was absolutely terrified by bananas, and they went through systematic desensitization using toys like this for him to be around the food, and now he can eat a banana. I'm not kidding. I know you're looking at me, isn't it?
He was terrified of bananas.
They have video showing him, now he could eat a mashed up banana, but if they showed him a banana, he would burst into tears.
Was it a peeled banana, or was it a banana?
A banana, but even when they peeled it and showed him, they pull back the peel and show him, here's this thing inside that you really like, he cries. And sometimes our kids have different issues with...
My son has the underside of carpet.
There you go.
He will not walk on a carpet that has padding underneath it, or that he knows has padding underneath it. And he will make a wide berth.
Yeah.
And if you take him on the carpet, he'll flip out.
Yeah.
And that's so interesting. Bananas.
Yeah. And so
was that the only thing?
For his child, or for
the child who was afraid of bananas?
No, Jack Riley has other things that he needed to be. But no, I think it was the only. He had a lot of food issues, But he has other sensitivities to other things. But
if it were just bananas.
But in particular, the bananas were a big deal. But there were a bunch of things he wouldn't even eat. They couldn't get him. He had a lot of food selectivity, and they used plastic and wooden fruits and vegetables to help get him to a place where he now eats a wide variety of foods. I mean, his family celebrates the first time that he eats spaghetti.
Well, you should celebrate that.
Absolutely.
But what's interesting is that was one of the things when I saw Temple Grandin, that movie.
Yeah.
It was a revelation for me because I the whole guillotine thing, when she sees sliding doors.
Yeah.
I understood for the first time that my son saw things in a very different way than I do, and I needed to pay attention to that. So that's pretty amazing. Bananas.
Bananas. And, when they're little and they're not yet verbal, it's very hard to get inside the head to know what's going on. And I think that's one of the gifts of the Temple Grandin story and the movie, is that if we can relate to her and her explanation of now what it was to her, as you said, we can apply it to our own children and go, there's stuff going on there. I may not know what it is, but there's stuff going on.
I had issues.
I want to ask you that. What was there anything that you had a fear of?
Anything that I had a fear of? There was, and I'm trying to remember what it was, but I can't.
Okay. Maybe during the show.
Yeah, I sort of blanking just because I'm kind of on the spot now. I put myself on the spot.
I know.
But I remember it was a lot of it had to do with smells of certain foods.
Really?
If something smelled off, even if it was a food I liked, like if I was, how when you get sick, sometimes your smells get mixed up. Like if I was sick, and I smelled a food that I liked, and I ate it, it might then in the future make me not stay away from that food, even if it was my favorite food. And I also would eat a food so much that I got sick of it eventually and wouldn't want to eat it anymore, because I would get obsessed. I was obsessed with Munster cheese. So whenever we went to the grocery store, they would just give me a slice of free Munster cheese. I would love it. Well, I didn't eat every meal, but I had this one cereal that I would only eat called Cranberry Almond Crunch. It's still the most delicious cereal.
Post Almond Select.
Yes. Post Select. It's like.
We're all about brands today. Do you notice?
It's significantly more expensive than every other cereal on the shelf. But my parents had to buy it when it was on sale. They would buy literally.
They'd buy it in bulk.
Oh yeah.
Costco.
Yeah. Well, we didn't. I don't think there was a Costco. We would just go to the regular supermarket. They just wait for it to go.
You just buy multiple boxes.
Yeah, because I don't think they had big boxes of the Post Select, because it's a specialty thing. But. And I know a lot of people with autism that would only eat certain brands of mac and cheese or
Well, I was like that.
Yeah.
When I was in college, I was I think it was the Kraft mac and cheese, but it was the powdery kind.
Right.
Because you get the clumpable mac and cheese, and you get the little clumps of super flavored powder, and it was.
I was afraid of eating like any like frozen burritos.
Really?
Yeah, I was like
because they might be frozen in the middle.
Well, no, because they just smelled weird, and like when you put them in the microwave, and like so my brother and like everyone else would eat these things, and then I was also afraid of trying a fake hamburger, or any sort of fake meat,
What's a fake ham? What's it? Oh, like
Morning Star, I think.
Okay, so
one of those veggie burger.
I
was always afraid to eat a veggie burger, basically.
And it's interesting because we all have preferences. And just this conversation, you were saying, well, I really wanted to have the one macaroni and cheese. But would you have had the equivalent of a meltdown in college if somebody had forced you to eat the other one?
Okay, I know people that would, yeah.
Really?
No.
I know people that were in college that definitely would do that.
I will say that I probably wouldn't have eaten the other kind.
Right. You would have been picky about it, but it wouldn't have caused you to have an anxiety attack or a meltdown or...
Well, I am a bit... I think I'm a bit obsessive about things. Certainly.
I
certainly
live in that neighborhood.
When I was in college, I really was obsessive about things. So
So it's interesting. As I've gotten older, I've gotten less particular about certain things. I mean, there's still things that I am very particular about, but there are. It's definitely getting older. Sort of makes you more.
You've mellowed.
Well, yeah. I mean,
yes, mellowed.
I've always been a strange eater. I mean, I'll like at Thanksgiving, I noticed again. I don't mix food. I eat, that, and then that, and then that, and then that, and the turkey I save for last, and that's just the way I eat.
Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't eat the stuffing. I would never eat the stuffing. In fact, I didn't even know that we were supposed to write how we made our stuffing for some project in school, and I wrote that we didn't use stuffing, which because I thought the stuffing was in the turkey, but when it came out it was always on a separate plate, and I just never ate it because I was kind of like, what is that?
Why is that inside the turkey?
Well, I didn't even know it was inside the turkey. It just looked weird.
Yeah.
And it can. And all of this started because we were talking about this. That's okay. It's all good. That's what we're here for. But this wonderful toy, this is the toy that we're giving away in this hour. This is going to be a great toy for some child. I would have great fun with this.
Yeah.
So we're going to take a short break, and when we come back, Matt's going to tell us about going to the car show. Wonderful, wonderful event, but something happened, and it's something that we can all learn from. So stick with us. More on that after these messages.
Skills is an online program that provides assessment, curriculum, positive behavior support planning for challenging behavior, and progress tracking, and it does this all in one place. The skills assessment and curriculum addresses 8 areas of development, which even includes advanced higher level areas such as executive functions and cognition, which pretty much makes skills the only ABA-based set of curricula for teaching more complex skills, things like problem solving, planning, self-management, perspective taking, and even inferring and predicting others' private events. Skills is a 4-step system. Step 1 is to add the child to your account. Step 2 is to start assessment. The skills assessment is the only ABA-based assessment with psychometric research demonstrating the language subscale to have excellent reliability. Every area of human functioning and typical child development from infancy to adolescence was researched, making the skills assessment the most comprehensive of its kind in the world, and we're quite proud of that.
Skills is easy to use. Simply click Start Assessment and begin answering questions. Or simply type in a keyword, find specific activities to assess, and add activities to treatment. Step 3. Choose activities. Once you've completed the assessment, Skills selects from a pool of 4,000 activities categorized by age, level, and skill type to provide you with exactly those activities each child needs. Start by choosing a curriculum, then a lesson, and finally an activity. Click the information icon to view prerequisites, ages in which targets develop, examples, and IEP goals. Click the video icon to watch a short video. Once you've identified an activity you want to teach, adding activities to treatment is a snap. Step 4. Start treatment. Here you can access customizable activity lesson details, add your own customized targets and exemplars, and edit an activity status such as introducing or mastering it. You can even print handouts such as worksheets, tracking forms, visual aids, and other materials. Skills also offers multiple progress charts mapping curriculum progress, lesson progress, and cumulative number of activities and targets mastered over time. The Skills Language curriculum is categorized by verbal behavior type so that users can identify progress for verbal operants, such as echoics, mans, tax, and interverbals.
Skills is one of the only programs that provides the ability to write behavior intervention plans, or BIPs, for challenging behavior.
With just a few clicks, the outline of the behavior intervention plan is written for you and ready to be printed and implemented.
You can learn more about Skills today and get started by visiting us at www.skillsforautism.com, or you can call us at 877-975-4559. Skills. Progress starts here.
Welcome back to Autism Live. My special guest here with us in the studio, we have Alex Plank from wrongplanet.net, and we have Mr. Matt Asner from Autism Speaks. He's the executive director of Autism Speaks Southern California chapter, but he's also a dad and a brother. And you, as a dad, you did a wonderful outing with your kids this last weekend.
Yeah.
Went to the LA car show.
Well, I'm the kind of guy who I like to go places with my kids, you know, and we like to do things. And so every year we go to the car show. And most of the time we go to the car show and Will wants to leave probably 10 minutes in. This year he didn't, which is great. He wanted to stay and he wanted to look at all the cars. He was having a blast going in the cars. And so we were there probably about 2 hours. And Jake got my attention and dragged me to look at the interior of some car, and I turned back to get Will, and Will was gone. You know, and you hear all this horrible stuff in the news, and I've talked on this show about him being almost abducted, and I have an abnormal. It's not an abnormal, but I have a fear. If he's out of my sight, I don't know, in a public place and I don't know where he is, I really kind of have a panic attack.
And there's nothing abnormal about it. I just want to say.
But I mean, it's
yeah,
it's hard. So he was gone, and I said to Jake and his little cousin, I said, "Where's Will? Where's Will?" And I don't know. And so we start running around like crazy men, screaming at the top of our lungs, "Will, Will!" Nothing. And I'm thinking to myself, oh my God. And I start looking around, there's 70,000 people there. And I think, you know, I don't see one security person. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, this could be really bad. And I start thinking, okay, what do I do? And I think, okay, I've got to go to like the lost person place. And so I start thinking, motivating myself and the two kids that I have with me, other than Will, Jake and his cousin. We start heading off to the lost person place, and as I'm doing that, my phone rings. And I pick up my phone, and it's from Florida, and I'm thinking, Florida always worries me.
Yeah.
So.
Well, we're in California. It would seem odd, like, why am I getting a Florida call?
Why am I getting a Florida call?
Yeah.
So I picked it up because I was in an emergency state.
Yeah.
And the guy on the other end goes, hey, I just want you to know, I'm sitting here, I'm at a BMW display, and I'm sitting here with your son. And he came up to me and said that he wanted me to call you and let you know to come pick him up. And I thought to myself, I had an overwhelming emotional response to that and thought, oh my God, this is unbelievable. Because I certainly didn't think he would have the presence of mind to go up to an adult who looked like he was in charge and say, I need you to call my dad, here's the number.
Amazing.
It was a very proud moment for me.
Yeah.
He, and by the way, when I found him, when I got to the place where he was, I don't know if you can put the picture up, but the one of him in the office, that's him enjoying his cars. He loves the convertibles. Okay, this is where I found him. He was holding court in a meeting of BMW executives.
That's pretty cool.
He's in charge there. You can tell he's in charge. He's leaning back in his chair, and he's telling them what's wrong with the BMW. And you can see he's very relaxed, and he put the fear of God into me, but he was totally in control. And to me, like you said earlier with the banana story, you've got to celebrate the little victories. And that to me was an incredible little victory. That was, he was in charge, he was unafraid, or he might have been afraid, but he knew what to do, and he knew to call me. And I was really proud of him, and his big brother was proud of him, which is a very rare occasion when his big brother is proud.
And so now my next question is, had you done any work to help him to get to that point?
Sadly, no.
Okay. Well, and you know what? Thank you for being honest about that, because I think it's something that a lot of times it doesn't occur to us. I have to say...
It should have occurred to me.
Well, you know what?
Didn't.
But you're human. You get to be human. We're going to let you be human for this week only.
Okay.
So we're having a sale on that.
And I'll be honest with you. I'm guilty of making excuses for him. I'm guilty of saying, oh, well, he's probably not going to remember my phone number, or he's not going to probably know, in a moment of stress to do that. And it's my problem and my issue. So I should have worked with him on that.
Well,
but I didn't.
But you know what?
And that's why it was so overwhelming to me.
Yes, and it's remarkable that he had the wherewithal to do what he did and that it all ended happily. But it does bring up conversation about, I always say that you're either the lesson or you have the responsibility to learn.
Yeah.
And for everybody who just heard that story, we can all be grateful that that didn't happen to us this last week, but we have a responsibility to learn from it.
I think sorry to interrupt, but go on.
Well, I was just going to say that we did talk about last week that our friends at ARG, the Autism Research Group, that I'm always telling people, fill out their survey because they're doing research that is stuff that you ask for. They just put out a free video on their website about how to teach these things to a child, about this exactly. And you can watch it for free, autismresearchgroup.com, about what to teach a child to do when they get lost.
Well, now the amazing thing for me is, all those times that he had the iPhone, and all those times he would call me, and I wasn't putting it together. He would call me, on the iPhone. He would take his mom's iPhone and call me, or my mom's iPhone, and he would call me, and I think it was just the repetition. And knowing, knowing who he was calling and knowing that number is representative of me. I was so impressed. It is
impressive. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing. Now, Alex, what did you want to
I was just going to say that, it could have turned out much worse.
Oh, my God.
You could have ended up at GMC or Dodge.
well, it was right next to Foval, so...
That's okay.
But he did choose BMW, so I thought that was interesting.
It's some incredible taste.
Right
he does have good taste.
It's not Mercedes,
and he really does have good taste. He really does.
But remarkable that he's safe. And I imagine we want to thank the BMW people for, because there are a lot of people who could have just ignored a child, as horrible as that would seem, but somebody who would listen to a child, stop, and dial their phone and call you. Pretty remarkable.
And when I talked to the guy at BMW, he said he came up to me and said, I'm lost. And I need you to call my dad. And he gave him the number and he called me.
Remarkable.
It was amazing.
And you never told him to do that? Or?
I never told him to do that.
That's really amazing then.
It is incredible. To me, it's a sign that every time something like that happens, I think to myself, he's going to be okay.
Yeah.
He's going to be okay.
Yeah, and he is.
For sure.
And he's going to be able to do his own thing.
Absolutely.
And I think that's wonderful.
It is wonderful. A happy ending. The perfect ending, actually, to find out, that he has even more skills than you thought he had.
That's a life skill.
It is.
That is a life skill.
That is a life skill. All right, on that happy note, we're going to take a short break, and we're going to come back with more after these messages.
You say howdy, we say hi. Let's get rowdy, let's get wild. 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 Let's get wild.
Hi, it's Lisa Ackerman. Welcome back to What's Left. We're enjoying some wine. We're going to make some fake bourbon chicken tonight. but we're not using bourbon. It's not gluten-free. So what we're doing, and Kristen, you're doing a great job at pounding and getting out all of your energy on that chicken, so go take it out.
I know. You know, how many of us moms are at a park or we're at a grocery store and somebody walks up to you and, you know, your child's having a meltdown and, you know, having not one of those fun days. This is a great thing to come home to. You would come home and really pound that chicken, and you would feel so much better. That's basically, it kills two birds with one stone.
You're making a great meal for your family.
Yes, and you're feeling great.
You're feeling better about that jerk who said, why can't you get your kid under control?
Absolutely.
Awesome. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take all your pounded, aggressive chicken and start to saute in the skillet. And I'm just going to add a little bit of my grapeseed oil. So I'm going to go ahead and just put this in. We love the way we're going to just try to brown this up and cook it a little bit. Just a little bit of salt and pepper on top. And we're just going to go ahead and brown this. Great, Kristen. Great job. I think we're almost all brown here, so I'm going to get your help over at the cutting board, if you don't mind.
The cutting station.
The cutting station. We're going to cut this in about 1/3 slices. You go chop it up. Okay. I'm going to start on the sauce.
Okay.
We're going to take the orange juice, water, and add that in. And I'm going to measure out the fake soy sauce, 1/3 cup. Add that in. Take in your ketchup and your brown sugar and go ahead and put that in. So in here is the red pepper flakes and ginger. So we're going to go ahead and add that in. So in the red pepper flakes, if you've got a kid that's really sensitive and doesn't like to bring a lot of heat to the kitchen, you can definitely omit that. That's not a problem. And then my favorite, as much garlic as tolerated. And the last thing that we're going to do, and as we get this heated up on the skillet, is we're going to pull this in, thicken to the sauce, and add in the arrowroot to thicken it. So we're going to go back to the frying pan. And put in our sauce, and we're going to bring it to a boil, and that's when I'm going to add the arrowroot. What arrowroot does for everything, like when we're baking with gluten-free flours, this adds kind of the oomph to hold it together. Arrowroot is also a great sauce thickener. So let's go in and add the chicken. Thank you again for helping get this all together. I made extra sauce because I'm a saucy girl. So we made a really nice meal here tonight. We're talking just the right flavors, right texture. So I'm going to serve you up to what we're going to have for dinner, if that sounds good to you. Yes! So
I always love coming over.
So what we made over here is just really some, what I call my dirty rice. And it's just some of the really nice different spices. I use a little red pepper flakes in that as well. Beaumont, parsley, and just salt and pepper. It's really simple. And some of my favorite, which is zucchini sauteed. So I'm going to just go ahead and serve you up, and you can get to be my guinea pig once again.
I will always be a good guinea pig anytime you cook.
Bon appetit, my friend.
Thank you so
much. And thank you for joining us at Autism Live. Kristen, I had fun with you today.
I always have fun. Thank you.
It is. It's great. And we had fun with you, too. And if you have questions or want to see us cook some more different dinners, just email us. You can email us at autismlive@gmail.com or go to Facebook, facebook.com/autismlive, or Taka Now. Taka's got tons of recipes, over 2,000 recipes ready for you to come and explore and have some fun. And thanks to Holly for this great bourbon-free bourbon chicken. And we'll see you next time on What's Love? Bye, guys.
You say hi, we say hi. Let's get wild, let's get wild. Let's get wild.
Welcome back to Autism Live. I am here in the studio with Alex Plank from WrongPlanet.net and with Matt Asner from Autism Speaks, the executive director of the Southern California chapter, also an autism brother and an autism dad. And we're going to talk a little bit for a moment about a story that two studies actually in the Autism Daily newscast. The headline reads, "Functional gastrointestinal problems are not uncommon in autism," and goes on to say the presence of bowel issues, whether functional bowel habits such as constipation or diarrhea, or more chronic bowel pathology occurring alongside the presentation of at least some cases of autism, have, perhaps more than any other comorbidity, generated some often heated discussion in both science and lay circles, whether due to the assertion of a connection between such bowel issues and environmental factors such as diet, or other variables, or due to a perceived lack of historical research and clinical interest in such issues, bowel problems with autism in mind have to some extent divided people. There are two studies, in the article that are cited, and you can read the full article by going to autismdailynewscast.com. But both studies suggest that functional bowel habits are not an uncommon issue for some on the autism spectrum. Further, they report that certain maladaptive behaviors correlated with the presence of such bowel issues, and Autism Research could do with channeling further resources into looking at any potential connections. So lays the groundwork here that this is something that has brought up a lot of discussion in our community, and I thought I would open it up to the two of you guys to talk about as well. We were talking a little bit during the break that I was saying that my son has gastrointestinal issues, and that certainly a lot of kids on the spectrum do, but it is by no means all of them.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a connection there, and I mean I know so many people who have whose children have issues with this. I have one friend who's now whose daughter's in the hospital. She's been there for almost 20 days with some severe intestinal situation, and it actually manifested itself after she was an adult. So her whole childhood, she has autism. Her whole childhood, she was fine, no problems with the stomach at all. And she's an adult now, and all of a sudden, the page is turned, and she has a massive issue with her.
And it affects everything.
Yeah.
I mean, we should say that. And I think it's one of the things that disturbs me the most about when pediatricians kind of poo-poo the gastrointestinal issue with autism and say, well, they have autism and they don't want to treat. Yeah, poo-poo it. I didn't get
Sorry,
it.
I had to
No,
say
it's
that.
okay. Love it. But I think, when you have gastrointestinal problems,
right,
it's hard to do anything else. It's hard to concentrate. It's hard to enjoy life. It's hard to learn anything. It's hard to do what's required of you. And that would be true for absolutely anyone. So if our kids have gastrointestinal problems, it's not something that we want to ignore.
You can't ignore it.
Well, I think a lot of doctors say, this is just part and parcel, or this is just part and parcel. This is just something you got to battle.
I think that's a problem to say that, because a lot of issues do come from diet, and obviously we discussed this in our earlier segment. There's trouble when you have a child or even an adult who won't eat anything except for a specific version of mac and cheese.
Right.
I mean, that's not going to be helpful. But and I don't know the validity of this study. I haven't researched it, but either way, I mean, if someone has an issue like that, it's just going to exacerbate any problems that they have with social. They're going to be. Yeah. It's going to be when I'm having a bad day. If I'm not feeling good, it's going to be harder for me to be able to be social and act.
Well, I mean this is also very difficult to talk about, But one of the ingredients of a happy life is a healthy bowel.
Yes.
I mean, that's just math.
Absolutely.
And when you add autism to the mix, and an unhealthy bowel, you've got a very unhappy kid.
Yeah,
frustrated
absolutely.
Kid or adult.
Absolutely. I love to listen to NPR on the way in the morning, and there was just recently, I think it was like a 4-part series where they were talking about the connection between the gut and the brain, and they weren't talking about it under the guise of autism. They were talking about it in terms of life, and all these different places that are now researching that just exactly what you said, that a key to having a happy life is having a healthy bowel, and that for people who don't have the enzymes in their bowel to process the food that they eat, they found that they're more likely to be depressed.
Of course.
They're less likely to be successful. They're less likely to feel that they've reached their fullest potential. And then in the midst of all this, they say, and by the way, people who have children on the autism spectrum have talked about this for a long time, right?
Well,
There's a footnote.
And I think we have our Autism Treatment Network at the Children's Hospital. And one of the things that they do there is a lot of gastrointestinal stuff. Absolutely. And there's an important connection there. There is an important connection.
Absolutely.
And I think that another thing that's important to think about is the fact that, you know, there's other conditions that might not be caused, or other conditions that don't have anything to do with autism, or a separate condition. And some people, I know multiple people in my life that I've known, both on the spectrum and off the spectrum, who have discovered at a quite later age that they were allergic to wheat. And they went through their entire life getting sick every time they had bread, or getting sick every time they drank a beer, and they never connected the two. So a lot of times you don't realize that there could be something else going on in addition.
Absolutely.
I stopped eating bread recently, and I felt much better when I stopped eating bread.
It's interesting because I've shared before on the show that my son has been on the GFCF diet for almost ever. And I'm allergic to wheat, and I recently found out that I'm allergic to dairy. So irony of ironies, I am now GFCF. For the longest time I was just GF, but now with much like crying and gnashing of teeth. Yes. Yeah, now I'm casein free as well. But what was interesting was when my son was going through his early intervention, behavioral intervention, there was a period of time in which all of the therapists on his team decided that they were just going to try it for a little while, that they were going to go GFCF just to see what it was like and put themselves in their client's shoes. And it was so interesting to see all the reports that came back. There was one therapist that, as a result, went and got tested and found out that he had celiac because he felt so much better. And another therapist who really hadn't been having any problems, but she said she could just think so much clearer, that she noticed that there was a different level of thinking, and that maybe she had a low-grade allergy. I know she's since gone back on the gluten. She said she missed it, but that she has less of it. But I thought it was interesting what they described, what it felt like for them. You know, and you know, it is something that people can try for themselves and see what, if that has a benefit. We know that it doesn't have a benefit for everyone.
Right.
But we know that for some people it has a health benefit for
And I think some people might think that it has a benefit, but it's more of a placebo effect, which in that case still works. If that works for you, then
absolutely
do it.
Absolutely.
Mind is very powerful.
The mind is a very powerful thing. But if you want to know more about either of these studies, or to further discussion about gastrointestinal, I kind of say, for me, this is the heard round the world. Oh, kids with autism sometimes have gastrointestinal problems. But we need the studies done, and if you want to discuss it further, you can do that at the autismdailynewscast.com. We have time for one short break, and then we'll come back and finish the show with last thoughts from Alex Plank and from Matt Asner. Stick with us.
The Institute for Behavioral Training provides courses in applied behavior analysis for the treatment of autism. Access IBT e-learning videos on the move and learn at your own pace.
Talk a little bit about intensity.
IBT e-learning makes any location your classroom on the go.
So our objectives for today are to really learn what is autism and how is it diagnosed.
Get professional guidance with IBT face-to-face training. IBT face-to-face training courses prepare you to effectively implement ABA-based interventions. Choose between small group and one-to-one instruction. Earn BCBA supervision hours via one-to-one video conferencing.
So I had a chance to review your BIP today. You know what? It looked really good. You did a good job with it.
IBT continuing education courses. Earn credit through webinars, conferences, article reviews, and e-learning videos. You can learn more at ibehavioraltraining.com. IBT, 360 degrees of ABA training.
Welcome back to Autism Live. In the studio with me here at the end of the show, we still have Alex Plank from wrongplanet.net, and we have Matt Asner from Autism Speaks, the executive director of the Southern California chapter. During the break, we were talking a little bit about talents that people have on the autism spectrum, and an expectation that there may be a way to somehow monetize on that talent, and that sometimes that's difficult. Finding the way to do that. And Alex, you had some thoughts you wanted to share.
I know multiple people on the spectrum who are incredibly gifted, and that's even an understatement. They're geniuses at certain fields, and there are a lot of people with autism who do actually turn that into a career. I think that
I think you're a shining example of taking your talents and using it in a way that not only benefits the entire world, but you've created a niche for yourself, a business for yourself.
I think the thing that I've done that makes that different, though, is that I take a more macro view of what I'm doing. I'm not just focusing on what I'm interested in, but I'm focusing in on the other aspects that make it possible to make money from what I do, like selling ads. I don't. It's not really the most fun thing for me. Creating a website.
Do you do it?
Yeah.
Do you yourself sell the ads?
I do.
Okay.
So you just overcome. It's not the most fun thing for you, but you've managed to find a way to get around it.
Yeah, I have.
And you've found a way to report to people why they should buy ads. And that's, I think, that's half of what ad selling is. Why they should buy an ad, why it's going to benefit them. But, during the break you talked about someone who was talented and in a particular area, but when it came to doing what you just said you did, which is going out and translating it into the real world, they're not motivated, they get bored, they go another direction, maybe they can't handle the social aspect of it, and that is a problem. That's one of the biggest problems, I think, with people on the spectrum in the world of employment, is that they don't, they can be so talented in something, but there's that missing piece that doesn't allow them to play the game. I'll say to play the game.
Yeah, and that's why I think sometimes maybe it might be good to be able to partner up with someone.
Right.
Even if you look at someone like Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak. Steve Wozniak was the guy who the brains.
Yeah, he was
and
not.
Jobs was
the guy that was going to go out and bang the drum.
Right. The creativity and.
Although he did create the US Festival, which I thought was very interesting.
He also buys sheets. You can buy sheets from the Treasury of $2 bills and cuts them and uses them. Like he's very very eccentric.
But I think, I look at my brother. My brother's a great example of this. He's incredibly intelligent, really, just one of the smartest people I've ever met. But when it comes to translating it into something tangible, there's a lot of difficulty there.
Yeah.
And he's not uncommon. That's not an uncommon problem.
Well, and I have to say that it isn't just people on the autism spectrum that have that issue as well. And you kind of hit the nail on the head, Alex, during the break that you said it comes down, I think it was Alex, maybe it was you, Matt, who said it's the executive functions portion of it.
That was him. I gave him full credit.
Okay. So,
that was me.
Yeah, it's you have the whole creative part of it, but the executive functions of being able to take something from point A to point Z and achieve the goal and overcome the obstacles that are difficult along the way is difficult for a lot of people. But in particular, we know that it's difficult for folks on the autism spectrum. And my question for you, Alex, is that you seem to demonstrate that you have found the way to circumvent that. So what's your secret?
Well, the secret is just doing things that you don't necessarily want to do, for like training yourself and forcing yourself to, when you're obsessed with something else that's like more obsessed.
Let's go back in time. So
okay.
You started out this probably as a very small project. It grew.
Yeah.
And you realized you had to go out there and, be the guy and bang the drum, be Steve Jobs, be Steve Wozniak and be Steve Jobs. But no, I'm using him as a metaphor. So, was it difficult when you started out? And how did it change? How did you change?
When starting it out was, you get to have that momentum, and you're trying to get people in there, and you're promoting the community. What became hard was when it got to the point where I am also in college. I'm trying to do all these other things, and I get other interests, and it's hard to keep my focus.
Balance.
Yeah, and it's something where I still want to go back. I mean, because at this point, it's the same thing that I have to do on the site. I do new things, I create new stories, but at a certain point you might get tired of it, or you might have a new interest. But if you stick with a certain thing and I treated it that way, I treated it as something that was incredibly important, and that if I didn't do it, it would.
Well, and it shows, because what you did is very difficult. I mean, to create something on the internet that's successful and sustains that success That's a difficult thing to do. It's not easy to do. So I find it...
And continuing to do it.
Right.
And I think that also the aspect of making that into a viable business, making it support itself by selling ads and working with the ad networks. I don't like working with the ad networks. It's just a pain. Like, honestly, it's just you have to manage all these ad campaigns and see what's paying more and like change like the ratio of what advertising network's showing and, you know, figuring out how much to sell each ad for, like when you sell it directly to advertisers instead of going through the networks and then having to talk to the advertisers and work with them and you know, communicate with them and get back to them on a timely basis.
Do you think maybe that it's a case of that you have found a way to make this work for you? So instead of saying that, oh, you know, you have to change the way you do things.
I think it's an aspect.
You actually now go into a room and you are Alex Plank. They know who you are.
Yeah.
You know, that's, you know, you're related to this website, and that's who you are. So you found a way to go through life, or your life, as Alex Plank. And you don't have to really kind of play the game as anyone else. You're Alex Plank.
Yeah, but it's also still hard for me because
I'm not saying it's easy.
Absolutely.
I'm not saying
I'm
it's
going to
easy.
interrupt because we're almost out of time, and I'm going to steal the last thought here because one of the things that I observe in you, Alex, is that you are very good at communicating what you need.
Yeah.
And I see that as a big strength in you, that if I am doing something that's preventing you from doing what you need, you're very vocal and able to say to me in a very polite way, here is how I need to get this information. And then I can say, okay, this is the way I can deliver it, and you're very gracious about it when that happens, and I think that that's a really incredible skill. And I will ask you to think about that because we're officially out of time. But I thank both of you for being here, and we'll have both of them back next week. A couple of short programming notes about tomorrow. Usually on Wednesday we have Ask Dr. Doreen, but as you know from last week, Dr. Doreen is away in Florida. She's going to be giving a talk on Thursday in Florida. I believe that there are still a couple of seats if you're going to be in the Fort Myer area and want to be there to see Dr. Granpeche speak live tomorrow night. You want to immediately RSVP by going to centerforautism.com and follow the links. Having said that, we have a very special treat tomorrow. In the first hour, we are going to have the filmmaker and the star of a documentary called Fearless Journey. You're not going to want to miss this. A young man who is touring the world and on the autism spectrum, a really exciting story, and documenting the entire thing and how he made that happen for himself. You want to talk about being successful in executive functions for having something happen? Incredible. So that will be tomorrow. Make sure that you enter the toy contest before 7 a.m. tomorrow morning. More gifts tomorrow. We'll be back tomorrow. Until then, please give your kiddos a hug from me. Bye-bye for now.